each of those graphic card manufacturers, graphic cards, test them with the game. That's installation, playing a little bit, um, right to finishing a game, right? We would try it with different amounts of RAM, hard drive space, partitions on a computer. There's a lot that goes into hardware testing, different mice, keyboards, game peripherals, another huge thing. So just as freaking monotonous, right? Like, again, game testing is not game playing. You're not enjoying it. You're enjoying the camaraderie, like I said before, and the food and the environment, because it was great, right? And I'll get into that in 1 second, because there was, honestly, when I look back, there was not a lot of stuff other than the thing with my kid working there. Electronic Arts was the gateway for my career. So anyways, when I was in tech, I came, I think it was in 1999, to a head with my decision. We had just moved to the new Electronic Arts building. That was at the end of 1999. Oh no, end of 98, beginning of 1999. This was EA Canada, the new campus that was north of Willingdon. Is it Canada Way? Willingdon. Sorry. It was west of Willingdon, north of Canada Way. That's correct. And a beautiful campus, like a beautiful, beautiful building. And I was in that new building for about half a year. And I could have worked my way into production, but at that point, you got to remember, I was coming off 3-4 years of not seeing my family. So when the opportunity presented itself to go work for another employer to basically double what I was making at Electronic Arts for substantially less hours, you can see why it was not a hard decision. It was basically, here's my notice, guys. 2 weeks, thanks. See ya. I left a lot behind, absolutely. And had I stayed there, and I do often wonder from time to time, had I stayed there, a lot of the guys that were in my era of EA have gone to do great things. And I'm not saying I would have, but my point is that the opportunities were there at that point in time. If you had the passion and the drive, and the schmoozing capability, because like anything, the most important thing you've got to sell, even when you're a salesperson, is yourself. Not just the product, but you've basically got to sell yourself. You've got to talk the talk, walk the walk, and be able to schmooze and socialize. That's a huge aspect of the gaming industry. And while I love being on stage, I did acting as a hobby, I'm comfortable, I'm still an introvert at heart. And while I'm comfortable on stage, the mingling, right, with suppliers and vendors and customers, the one-on-one interaction in a busy venue is not something I enjoy. I can fake it, I can put on a great show, but grinding that day after day would wear me the fuck out. Like, it really, really would. And it did. I mean, to some extent. I was looking for something much lower key, that paid better and had better hours, and I found it. Now, what are the good things about having worked at Electronic Arts that I haven't mentioned yet? The camaraderie, I mentioned. The generosity, and look, people complained about the pay. Absolutely. We didn't get paid a hell of a lot, right? It honestly, at that time, and I'm under no confidentiality agreement or anything, but I can say with a straight face that I was making as low as $9 to basically $12 an hour as a games tester. That has changed somewhat. Game testers now require a lot broader skill set, like test scripting. They've got to know more, right? But back then, it was basically, you could come from any industry and be a games tester. You just had to have a passion for games. But we had people from all walks of life. We had musicians in bands that were trying to get their big break, that were working at Electronic Arts to kind of, pay the bills in the interim, right? We had people going to school that were working there just for the money, or people transitioning careers. It was broad, right? Like I said, we had lots of females working there. you know, female gamers that enjoyed that. But all of us, regardless of where we came from, when I talk to ex-employees, they share the same thing, that, yeah, it ruined the enjoyment of the games. And I purposely avoided games while I was there that I thought were going to burn me out of the game so that I wouldn't be able to enjoy the Go Live experience. And I mean, you can imagine, like a game like Diablo, like imagine having tested Diablo, that magic that millions of us had first loading up Diablo. Remember that music? That tranquil, awesome, fantastic fantasy music that would play. And it was essentially just a graphical roguelike. It was NetHack on steroids with graphics. And yet there was something magic about that procedurally generated world, you know, the dungeons under the churchyard. When you are a games tester, it's like busting open the curtain of Oz, right? As a game consumer, that curtain is up and you are seduced by the magic of Oz. As a games tester or developer, you don't have that same seduction. You are basically, you see all the ugly, the rotten, right? And I've mentioned this before in videos. I can to this day crash any game that I worked on a commercial release version, because my time there was so deeply ingrained in my psyche, scarring to some degree, right? But again, I promised I'd talk about some good experiences. Along with the camaraderie was when there was downtime, right? Now, I focused a lot on the end of a project. So let's put this into perspective. So I basically would work 3 to 4 projects a year. Okay? 2 of those were hell on earth hours, long hours, 24-hour shifts. Basically, Monday to Saturday night would be 16-hour shifts, right? And then Sunday, we wouldn't get the day off, but we'd work till about 5 p.m. But let me tell you, when you work that many hours, even just one day, to have half a day or even 5 hours in the evening, it felt surreal. It was like, wow, what do I do with all this time? What do I do with all this time? Sunshine, oh my God, like you just basically, you freaked out. You did know how to handle time like that because you're so used to the routine of basically waking up to go to EA, to go to sleep, to wake up, to go to EA, right?